I have state and local experience in finance and government. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Delegate Karen Keys-Gamar. I'm from House District 7, which is most of Reston, parts of Oakton and Herndon in Fairfax County. Formerly, I served on the school board in Fairfax County, served on the budget committee, had to approve a lot of budgets, and this is my third year on the finance committee.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Delegate Michelle Lopez-Maldonado, representing District 20, which includes the cities of Manassas, Manassas Park, and parts of the western end of Prince William County. In my non-political world, did lots of revenue modeling, responsible for multi-million-dollar budgets and execution and management. And here on the political side, also subcommittee chair of our Committee on Insurance and Financial Institutions. Glad to be here. This is my first session and year on the committee.
Good afternoon, Delegate Kimberly Pope Adams, representing the 82nd District, parts of Dinwiddie County, Prince George County, all of Surrey County, and all of the city of Petersburg. I have been a state employee for the past 20 years with experience in both accounting and auditing in both the executive and legislative branches.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Delegate Nicole Cole, serving House District 66, Spotsylvania, and Caroline counties. I have an MBA in finance. I've served on finance committees as a school board member in Spotsylvania, as well as a budget committee for 1 year with the Spotsy County Board of Supervisors, and I run for 20 years a financial planning and advisory services firm.
Good afternoon. My name is Stacey Carroll. I am the delegate to represent the 64th District, that's Stafford County, parts of Stafford County. In my non-political career, I am a certified public accountant, licensed here in Virginia as well as DC. I've worked at 2 of the big 4 firms in various parts of practice, whether it be tax and or assurance. Glad to be here.
Good afternoon. My name is Lindsay Doherty. I represent the 75th House District, which includes parts of Chesterfield County, parts of Prince George County, and all of Hopewell City. I served as a budget analyst for the 4th largest municipality in the Commonwealth, managing over $1 billion of budget through that role, and then currently manage grants from the federal government as a state employee at VCU. And so I'm excited to join you today.
Hi, I am Delegate Gretchen Bulova, freshly sworn in this morning, and I'm excited to be here. I represent the city of Fairfax, parts of Central Fairfax. I am a proud public servant for the city of Alexandria. I serve as an agency head where I manage a fairly complex budget of general funds, capital improvements, and donation funds. So thanks for this opportunity.
Good afternoon. My name is Delegate Margaret Franklin, also newly sworn in as of this morning. My background is actually on the other side of the table, served on the Prince William Board of Supervisors for 5 years, including local authority with regards to taxation, also the former chair of our bus system and the Virginia Railway Express. And then also worked on the Hill where staff members on the Joint Economic Committee. So looking forward to serving, and thank you all.
Thank you. Delegate Davis.
Good afternoon. Delegate Will Davis from the 39th House District, which covers all of Franklin County and part of Roanoke County. This will be my 3rd year on this committee, and I run my own law practice and deal with numbers too often, but look forward to working with all of y'all here this year.
Please.
Good afternoon. I'm Delegate Chris Runyon. I represent the 35th District, which is all of Highland, all of Bath, most of Augusta, and southern Rockingham counties. I am an accounting graduate from Hokieville, good tech graduate there, and an MBA from JMU. So I'm one of those wonky peoples that I really like to see numbers add up and equal what they're supposed to. So I have enjoyed this committee. This is my 5th year on it, and looking forward to serving.
Good afternoon. I'm Delegate Wendell Walker from the Hill City of Lynchburg. And I think this is my 5th year on this committee. And having been in the private side, working for the Commonwealth for 21 plus years, And then working as a private contractor, I'm still trying to hang on what little money I have left, so I know the importance of balancing budgets.
I'm Joe McNamara. I represent the 40th District, which is Roanoke County parts, Roanoke City parts, and all of Salem. This is my 8th year on the committee. I am a certified public accountant in the Commonwealth of Virginia, currently in inactive status.
I'm Delegate Buddy Fowler from Hanover County, represent Hanover, Louise, and a little bit of Henrico. I was counting on my fingers, but I only had 10. But anyway, this is my 13th year on the Finance Committee, and where I've learned a lot, especially from this guy here, Delegate Lee Ware. But anyway, I would just say that taxes are good, but only to a point. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'd do a little amendment to that. Justice Holmes said taxes are what we pay for a civilized society. Yeah. So, to a point, that's where we go. Yep. I am represent the 72nd House District, which is all of Powhatan, Amelia, and Nottoway counties, and a portion of Chesterfield around Midlothian. I have been on this. This is my 29th year on this committee. And I served a couple terms as a member of the Board of Supervisors, and I am married to a CPA, so I hear about numbers all the time.
Delegate Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and my apologies for being just a moment late. My name is Rip Sullivan. I represent the 6th District in Fairfax County, which is McLean, Great Falls, and a portion of Vienna. I took tax in law school, which is when I decided, and actually my professor decided, that I should not be a tax lawyer. But this will be my 12th year on this committee, and I have learned an awful lot during that time that I wasn't able to absorb in law school, mostly as a result of the great leadership of this committee by Delegate Ware at first when I got here, and then Delegate Watts. So it's great to be with you all.
Thank you. And I suppose as I was thinking, should I introduce myself? Let me just say that I don't know how many years I've been on this committee. When I first came into the General Assembly, for the first 4 years, I was on Finance Committee, and it was a very robust tax writing committee. We are, after all, arguably the biggest volume of the code, certainly at the federal level and probably at the state level. I earned my stripes to be put on that committee because for 15 years as the active citizen when women didn't run for office, I was always the numbers person going after the budget at a very robust time of the growth of Fairfax County and how in the world do we fund the services and build economic growth within the county. And it is that breadth of tax awareness that I bring to the committee as, again, we will announce the subcommittees at the end of the meeting, but this committee has always had the tradition of sub 1, sub 2, 1 year it's state, 1 year it's local, and we switch so that we have that breadth of understanding of the totality of the Commonwealth's tax structure. With that, it is now my particular honor to introduce our new Secretary of Finance, Secretary Sickles, who is bringing the team that is behind the Secretariat so that we have a better understanding than we've ever had in the initial presentation to this committee. Beyond the tax department, what are the other elements of the financial oversight and management of the Commonwealth? Secretary Sickles, my honor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to be here. I didn't have the opportunity to serve on this committee, but I always took instructions from you whenever you were willing to give them. It's good to see all these new members here on the front row. Congratulations on your election. In the Secretariat of Finance, there are 4 big agencies, a couple of smaller ones, but we have the Treasurer, we have the Department of Accounts, that is run by the Comptroller. We have the Department of Planning and Budget, and we have, as you know, the Department of Taxation, which you hear from frequently. So we have the big 4 here today. I want you to get to know them. They want to be available to you when you have any questions. We're open here in open government, new day. So these folks are willing to work with you on any project you might have. So we only have 40 minutes. That's what the chair gave me. So we have to get 4 folks here and any questions you might have done in the next 40 minutes. So first, I would like to introduce you to Sharon Lawrence, who is the Comptroller of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Thank you, Secretary Sickles. Thank you, Secretary Sickles and Madam Chair. I'm not sure what happened to the presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, just hit this one right here. But you only have one slide.
I only have one slide, so I'm good. So apologize for the technical difficulties. As I said, I'm Sharon Lawrence. I am the newly appointed State Comptroller, and I like to thank Secretary Sickles and Governor Spanberger for their confidence in me. I am a certified public accountant as well. I've been with the state for my entire career. It's been 37 years. I started with the Auditor of Public Accounts as an auditor. I joined the Department of Accounts in 1997. I've had a series of leadership roles with the department, most recently as the Deputy State Comptroller, and also served a period of time as the Acting State Comptroller during the prior administration. You have the functional units up on the screen and in your handout just for reference purposes. I'm not going to go through all of the units, but it gives you a flavor for what the Department of Accounts does. Per the state code, the comptroller is responsible for a uniform system of accounts and records. We have to develop a system of checks and balances and also maintain a central accounting system. We do this through a number of accounting policies and procedures, as well as financial reporting policies and procedures that we issue. We call it the CAP Manual, Commonwealth Accounting Policies and Procedures, that dictates how all agency fiscal operations are supposed to record the information in the centralized general ledger, as well as good practices for the accounting and reporting that is done. We maintain the Cardinal system, which is an ERP system. It's the statewide general ledger, as well as the centralized payroll system. There are a few agencies that have their own accounting system, so they only provide summarized data to Cardinal. Those are primarily higher eds. But by and large, we have the detail of the Commonwealth's disbursements in Cardinal, and all employees and agencies that are paid through the centralized system, we have their information in Cardinal for payroll purposes. We also, as I said, we have the CAP Manual, the policies and procedures. We also promulgate what we call the Agency Risk Management Internal Control Standards. That's the Commonwealth version of SOX, basically. So it's how we ensure that we have good internal controls throughout the agencies. And agency heads and fiscal officers are responsible for certifying to us annually that they have, in fact, put controls in place to ensure sound financial reporting and accounting throughout the systems. The other thing that we do, the big report that we issue that you may be familiar with is the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. That's the audited GAAP basis financial statements for the Commonwealth. It's consolidated. It's fairly important for the bond raters. They have a tendency to take a look at that, see how things are going every year. We also have a variety of other consolidated reports, the revenue report, general fund preliminary report, and also a consolidated report of federal expenditures called the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards that we have to issue every year. We also provide some oversight by monitoring the APA audit findings, audit public accounts audit findings, to make sure that agencies are taking corrective action to remediate any issues that the auditors find. In addition to our mission control or our mission critical processes that I just covered, in the near term, we're also going to put a lot of effort and focus on implementing our succession plan. We have developed a succession plan, but now we need to implement it. over half of our senior leadership is eligible to retire within 5 years. So it's really important that we build the bench so we have operational resiliency upon the retirement of myself and others within our leadership team. The General Assembly was very generous to us over the past budget cycle and did authorize some additional accounting personnel for us. We need some additional resources in order to ensure that we are maintaining the standards that we need to maintain. We're actively trying to recruit those positions, but as those of you who are familiar with accounting know, it's a little hard these days to find qualified accountants. We're really running up against stiff competition from private industry that can pay more than we can, but we're doing everything that we can to fill the positions. We have an authorized level of 180. We're currently sitting at 159, and as I said, we're actively recruiting those other positions. And that's a summary for us. Are there any questions for me?
Thank you very much. I will, and in the interest of time, unless there's a pressing question, I just wanted to underscore that one of the things when she said those annual reports that we have to do, an invaluable instrument for members of this committee is the Auditor of Public Accounts, all 133 counties and cities plus towns. What is collected in all of those areas of taxes and a few revenues as well, to look at that great diversity throughout the Commonwealth that you will see displayed in that account, and it is readily available. There'll be several times when we'll be referring to it during this session in particular. So that, along with whenever there's a good idea of what we ought to do, how do you actually administer it? And this is a little bit of what is part of that administration. I wish you well in the next 4 years.
Thank you so much.
One thing I've learned in my first day on a job is how interesting the treasurer's job is. People want to be our treasurer, and we've got a good one here. He's been here for 4 years prior to this, and I'll introduce you to David Richardson.
Thank you, Secretary. Interesting is a good description. So yes, I've been treasurer for the past 4 years, and it was my great honor to be reappointed by Governor Spanberger for another 4-year term. First 4 years was interesting. This is going to be even more interesting. I'm really looking forward to working with every one of you. Treasury is it's really an interesting operation because it's got 5 distinct product lines which are outlined on the slide here. They interact to some extent, but more often than not, they're separate. I was a public finance lawyer at McGuire Woods Law Firm for 40 years, so I knew a lot about the debt world. I didn't know a lot about the other pieces of this puzzle, and I've really learned a lot in the last 4 years. So I'm really looking forward to applying what I've learned to this 4 years. We handle all the debt for the Commonwealth, and that means that we are responsible for what is right now approximately $20 billion debt portfolio. That debt gets issued by the Treasury Board. It also gets issued by various alphabet soup of agencies. Virginia Public School Authority, which makes loans to the public schools around the state. The Virginia College Building Authority, which does the same thing for our state colleges, and the Virginia Public Building Authority, which finances this building and other buildings that are owned by the Commonwealth. So we staff all of those operations in our debt. We also are responsible for the relationship between the Commonwealth and the rating agencies, and that is really one of our top priorities, probably the top priority. We have a good staff that really has great relationships with Fitch and Moody's and Standard & Poor's, and we are constantly in contact with them. We're transparent like cellophane. We just are giving them information all the time. We have a dialogue with them all the time, and they are very happy with us right now, so knock on wood, things are good. I know we have headwinds, but we're in good shape with respect to the reserves that we have, and they love our governance. They love the fact that when we shift from one administration to the next, nobody loses sight of what's important in the Commonwealth for finance. And that's just been the case for decades and decades, and they recognize that. The next part of the alphabet soup of organizations within Treasury is cash management. So we also we manage $30 billion of taxpayer money right now. It's actually $45 billion because we also do $15 billion of local government. We invest for local governments, the local government investment pool. Most local governments just don't have the wherewithal, the investment knowledge and depth to be doing that. So we have this local government investment pool, which they really like. So it's a total of $45 billion. It's a large responsibility. And we're very mindful of that. We also, in cash management, manage the banking network around the Commonwealth. So we have, if you're in an ABC store in Southwest Virginia, you've got to get your money to the bank. Well, we have to manage all those relationships with all the various banks. The next batch is the risk management. In most states, risk management is actually not in Treasury. I think there are only 2 or 3 states where their risk management is in Treasury. Most of the time, it's in the equivalent of DGS, because the biggest chunk of what we do in risk management is insurance. We obtain insurance for the Commonwealth's property. It's $63 billion worth of property that the Commonwealth owns that needs to be insured, and it's a complicated matrix of insurers that do that. There's about 35 insurance companies that participate in that, and we do an annual renewal. Premiums are significant, and we have a real good strategy to try to keep those premiums down. But in addition to property, we also handle medical malpractice for our hospitals that are state-owned, and also cyber insurance, liability insurance, and we handle claims. We process claims, but we also work to settle those claims, and we get involved with the Attorney General's office in various litigation matters as well from time to time, unfortunately. Although, given my legal background, it's okay if the lawyers get paid. That's okay. The next chunk is operations. We do all the bank reconciliation for the Commonwealth. We handle the Security for Public Deposits Act, where banks who collect money from for state money, like the ABC stores, they have to collateralize their deposits, because we don't want them to be going under with our money in their bank. We also handle check printing. Interestingly enough, during my first 4 years, we outsourced all of our check printing. We were printing 2 million checks in the Monroe Building in a little printing operation that most people didn't know about, and I was shocked to see. It didn't make any sense to be using that kind of space and having that personnel. It's not something that we thought made a lot of sense. So we've outsourced it to a really good company, and it's worked out really well. It's saving us money, and it's much more efficient. Finally, one of my favorites is unclaimed property. Now, this is the one I find the most interesting, because we have half of our people go out and try to collect unclaimed property that businesses hold that they should have given to the Commonwealth under the Unclaimed Property Act. So if you make a deposit for an apartment and you forget that you had a deposit and you move out, that company is supposed to be turning that money over to unclaimed property if they can't reach the real owner. So some people are better at reporting than others. So we have auditors that go out and try to get that money in the door. And the other half of my people in unclaimed property try like crazy to give the money back. So last year we gave a record amount of money back, reunited a record amount of money with holders. It was over $100 million, $118 million we gave back. We also collected $300 and some million. It was the highest numbers we've ever had. We processed 93,000 unclaimed property claims. So it's a very interesting area, and it's really been successful. And Delegate Hernandez helped us with the bill last year that allowed us to send money out to people who didn't even submit an application. So if your Social Security number matches up, your name matches up, and your address matches up, and it's an owner claim that's less than $5,000, we mail you a letter. If it doesn't come back as undeliverable within 60 days, we send you a check. So we've given out millions of dollars under that Cash Back Now initiative, and so we loved that. That was really good. It was a good thing for the Commonwealth.
On that happy note, again, being concerned about the full presentation of text, I want to say two things. One, thank you very much. I agree with you. Your continued service and stability for the Commonwealth's management is absolutely crucial. And I thank you for that continued service. But I would also point out to the members on all of the things that are under his purview, preserve the AAA bond ratings. Maybe you might end up like a then Delegate Sickles on appropriations, where you get to give people all this money. We are unfortunately, most of the time, the gatekeeper. Well, why can't you give me that credit, that deduction? Why can't you cut taxes in this way? And it all comes back to that AAA bond rating, whether we have the stability in our revenue stream, not just for the moment, but for the long term. So that will be part of your challenge in the joy of being on this committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm there. One of your new members used to work the Treasury Department right over here. And Kimberly Pope Adams spent 4 years over there. So the way I wanted to say about the Appropriations Committee, it's not that fun. Most of the time, it's laying, it's laying your bill gently on the table. Is 90% of it. You get don't get too excited until you get up to the 12th floor, and then your dreams are crushed. Now, many of you probably know Michael Mall. He is the director of the Department of Planning and Budget, and he's somebody that I will get to know, I think, a lot better in the next 4 years. Michael. And you got to be fast.
Madam Chair, good morning. Good morning, everybody. I've been doing the job at the Department of Planning and Budget of some sort for over 40 years. And so I've seen most everything and experienced a lot, but I'm hopefully always learning. And so I'd like to learn from you all, too, in the future. Delegate Watts, as a younger analyst, I believe you were Secretary of Transportation and Public Safety. And I did have the chance to work with your office, and so I appreciate that. Delegate Gardner, you and I had to go through some fun in public safety, and I appreciate that very much. But my agency is fairly small. We only have 50-some people. The majority of it, though, deals with the development of the budget that the governor introduces to the General Assembly and the implementation of that budget after it gets passed by the General Assembly and signed by the governor. And you would think, well, what is there to do? Well, remember, the budget is a plan. It's wrong the day it's signed, and you have to have some flexibility to keep it moving forward, and that's the role my agency typically plays. I also have a division that deals with all the reviews of regulations and provides economic analyses on the impact of those regulations for the cabinet secretaries and the governor's office to help them make informed decisions. And I created several years ago a new small division to look more closely at programs similar to what JLARC does, but on a smaller scale, just to see how we can do improvements. The one thing, though, that most of you will know about the Department of Planning and Budget, or will learn, is that we usually are the ones who do the fiscal impact statements on your legislation. So we are either loved or hated at most times. Now, the good news for your committee is that most all of your bills will actually be done by the Department of Taxation. And you, Kristen Collins, will certainly talk about that briefly. But if there is anything that impacts the budget more directly, typically Planning and Budget will take on that fiscal impact statement, and taxation will feed us the necessary information from their side of the world. But this is basically, Planning and Budget really works as staff to the General Assembly in the sense that we do our best to come up with what we think are reasonable fiscal implications after talking to the agencies, but no one else is really weighing in. It's just us providing the best information we think we can provide you. And knowing that on occasion, we may not get it right, but we'll do our best to always get the right one when we're there. The only thing I'm going to leave you with is, and actually, I'm going to go a little further. I got 3 slides here. Our website is one, certainly you can learn more about us, but you see that one at the bottom there. I'm going to show you just a couple of slides, but there's so much more there, including the resources side. There's been a requirement for quite a while to have a 6-year plan of spending so that you can see what might happen in the future. The one thing we've done over the last several years is make this a decision-making tool where it's actually brought into the budget development process. And as you can see, highlighted down there at the bottom, the $13.8 million in 2029, if you pass the budget as it's introduced with no changes in your assumptions on revenues, that is how much of a balance we'd be carrying over to 2029, which allows us to be in structural balance in the out years. We are still relying on a lot of one-time money to help carry us through in the proposed budget for this coming biennium. And so I just want you to be aware of that because that's the challenges that certainly appropriations is going to have. But of course, the revenue side is going to be very important on what your committee is going to determine. Just for your reference, this will show you where the money is, and there's no surprises. K-12 education and Medicaid are some of the biggest areas that you're going to have to worry about for spending. The last thing I'll just leave you on is that I'll reiterate that we do have within that website, that link there, we do have also that resources. So you can see, for example, what we're carrying for conformity is in there. And of course, taxation has that better than we do. And then finally, it also showing for the first time what happens if our forecast goes down to what would be a more somber amount of revenues and what those implications are in the out years, as well as wonder if things are better. So the 3 forecasts that tax provides, the standard one is what's in the budget, standard plus, standard minus is also showing there. And you can also see every single assumption that we make on the future cost. So nothing is hidden, it's all there. And if we have any questions, you know we're here for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And what I will underscore in this presentation of these last 2 charts, one, keep in mind up at the top, net individual income, individual income tax, sales tax, corporate tax, and the balance of the 2. If we had a good pie chart, you'd see the tremendous dependence on the income tax compared to sales and corporate tax and all other taxes. Look at this as far as some of the challenges that we will have with these sources of revenue. And then I would also point out, as you look at the chart that follows, that the number 1, I believe, on that list still is K through 12 education, which is all about local taxation, where it is the burden is borne predominantly by the real estate tax. And again, this is what all these numbers that we just love that other people see as gray pages have life.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you can see, we've got a very professional staff. And this next speaker is, I think, here at each one of your meetings, and people know her well. And I checked out, her bona fides with a couple of you before she was just reappointed our Commissioner of Tax, Kristen Collins.
May I clap? Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. It is my great honor and pleasure to be standing here before you today as the new State Tax Commissioner. So I've known a lot of you for many years, but just a quick recap of my background for those of you who are new to the committee, welcome. So I've been at the Department of Taxation for about 15 and a half years. I started a couple years out of law school. I am a tax attorney. I have an MBA and also an LLM in tax law. And I started as a policy analyst on our policy and legislative team and kind of worked my way up through the agency agency over the years. For 5 years, I was the policy director, so very heavily involved with all of you. And in more recent years, took on some additional responsibilities, all of our legal functions, and then was deputy commissioner for the past year and a half. So very happy to be here. And I have a great team. A lot of you know some of the folks from my team. They will be in the meetings. A big part of our agency's function during session is, as Michael mentioned, we do fiscal impact statements for the tax bills. It's about 10% of the total legislation each session. And we provide a lot of support to both your committee and Senate Finance and Appropriations, which hears the tax bills on the Senate side. So if I'm not available, there'll be somebody here to answer your questions and help you figure it out. So today I was asked to provide an update on, we have a new core tax processing system that we're in the process of implementing, the early stages, so I was going to provide an update on that, as well as kind of a brief Tax 101 overview. You'll see there are a lot of slides left in your deck. I promise we won't read every single one of them to you today, but thought the materials might be helpful to you. A lot of it was pulled from a presentation we did 2 years ago, the last time there were a lot of new House Finance members. So after I give kind of an overview of our system update and the general structure of taxes in Virginia, I was going to have Ryan Cunningham, who's the lead on our income tax side, and James Savage, who is our policy director, legislative director, also hit a couple key points for sales and individual income tax, because those, like Delegate Watts mentioned before and Michael mentioned, are two of the biggest revenue sources, and those are most of the bills that you'll be hearing in this committee. But I promise it'll be an overview, not every detail. So IRMS, the Integrated Revenue Management System, is our old core tax processing system that our agency started implementing 25 years ago. It's based on outdated power builder technology that is obsolete. We've had difficulty recruiting younger programmers out of school, backfilling positions as people retired, and it's become really hard to program legislative changes and make simple updates to the system and ensure the system is secure. So we started a journey back in 2017 to replace our system. I personally have been involved pretty heavily the last couple of years in securing funding for the system replacement to make sure we're able to keep the Commonwealth's revenue secure. So I'm happy to say that last session, the General Assembly approved funding $131 million for our agency to implement a new tax processing system. We entered into an RFP back in July, started the project in August. It's a 4.5-year project with a rollout each September by tax types, which I'll get into that in a minute. But the vendor is called Fast Enterprises. They've done this in 34 other states already, so very experienced in this area and has been a good partner with us thus far. So this is kind of our general implementation timeline, and I think the key takeaway for you all in this committee is next September of 2026, we will be implementing the sales and use and withholding taxes. Those are the two biggest taxes on this list. And then the following year, we will be doing corporate income tax as well as some other business-related taxes, and the third rollout will be the biggest one, the individual income tax, which impacts the most people and the most revenues. And the reason that's important for you all to realize, we are trying to be very thoughtful about, as we're implementing new legislation, working very closely with our vendor and making sure that everything that we need to implement from the General Assembly can fit into our rollouts in a way that doesn't put the Commonwealth at risk in terms of making sure the system is secure, the changes are programmed in time, and we're being thoughtful and responsible with that. So phase one, the sales tax piece, which again is going to be the key piece you are going to be focused on this session or need to be aware of this session. This is a high-level overview of what the rollout looks like. And so right now we are in the middle of development and conversion, so developing the business requirements for the system, converting the data over from the old system to the new, and in the early stages of testing. And the reason that's important for you all to be aware of, starting in March of 2026, we will be doing the business testing, which means we will be testing how all the different changes will impact the business units, making sure everything's posted correctly to taxpayers' accounts, that we can do all the things we need to do to process tax returns, issue refunds, that sort of thing. So as we are reviewing sales tax bills, we're looking at making sure that nothing is going to impact our rollout in September, and that we're able to implement the new changes in time. So changes that don't impact our forms, we can do in a timely manner. So July 1st after session is typically the standard implementation date for sales tax changes. There will be some bills that have bigger changes to our forms and systems. We will be working with you all to request an enactment date that's a little bit later of January 1st, but we're happy to work with you. If there are concerns that you have about that, we're happy to talk those through with you, but just kind of want to flag that in case you see those in fiscal impact statements. So next, just kind of a quick overview I'll kind of share, and Michael already kind of mentioned it, I believe, in Delegate Watts as well. Individual income tax is almost 3/4 of the general fund revenue sources that our agency collects, and our agency collects about 95% of general fund revenues for the Commonwealth. So individual and sales tax are going to be the two biggest bills that you'll see this session, and then also corporate income tax is the third biggest revenue source, and you can kind of see how it's increased over time by sources. And so our agency does not collect all of the taxes. We don't administer every tax, but we administer most of them. So here's kind of a listing of the general fund revenue sources of taxes that we collect. We collect a few non-general fund taxes as well, so commodity taxes, cigarette, tobacco, those sorts of things. And then other agencies also administer a few taxes, so I won't go through that, but this is kind of a list for your awareness. If you see any of these come through the committee, that will be handled by another agency. And then also, as was mentioned earlier, the localities collect the local taxes. They administer those taxes. Our agency does play a role, though. We also handle the fiscal impact statements for local taxes in that we provide an impact statement that explains what the bill does, suggests technical amendments, and kind of gives you a sense of whether local revenues would increase or decrease. We don't have the data to provide detailed revenue estimates for you, so the Commission on Local Government will often provide that information in addition to our standard FIS that you'll review. And I should have mentioned, we also have a little bit of oversight over localities. We issue regulations and guidelines for some of the local business taxes, and our appeals process also covers some of the local taxes. So with that, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and hand it off to Ryan Cunningham, who will give I promise, very quick overview of the individual income tax, followed by James Savage. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen, Chair Watts. I'm going to jump right into these slides, and we're going to go through them pretty quickly. I am going to park on one slide in particular, but we'll get to that one just to kind of break down how all of these pieces fit together. The first thing is just who must file an income tax return in Virginia. It's anybody who makes over $11,950 if you're single, or $23,900 if you are married filing jointly. Just the only point on this slide is that's not typical of other states. This is not the amount of our standard deduction and personal exemption added together. We have a separate filing threshold that's slightly higher than that number. That's a little bit odd, but that is just a kind of a quirk of Virginia, is that we have a filing threshold that's slightly higher than the standard deduction and personal exemption for most taxpayers. The next thing I want to jump into is conformity with federal law. Why this is important is because where Virginia starts with their individual income tax. We start with your federal adjusted gross income. That means we're using the same definitions that the federal government uses to determine that number. There are certain exceptions to that, and we'll get into those in just a second, but how we conform to those federal definitions is important. A long time ago, over 30 years ago, we used to conform automatically. So whenever the federal changed, we changed. We made a change away from that, where we did fixed date conformity. That means we pick a date and say, as of this date, we agree with all the federal definitions except for, and then we list the ones that we don't agree with. Recently, in 2023, we had a switch back to partial rolling conformity. That means that we automatically agreed with the federal definition if it were under a certain threshold amount. You see those thresholds amount up there, 15 million per or 75 aggregate changes were the threshold amounts. That rolling part of Virginia's conformity was put on pause by the 2025 Appropriations Act. So in effect, we're sort of back to that fixed date conformity. We're not automatically updating, except for extenders, we're not automatically updating our definitions to match federal definitions. We have to pass a law specifically updating and saying that we agree. So that's the slight change there. The next slide has a list of some of the deconformity provisions. Those are the things that we don't agree with the federal definition on. We have our own different definition, but we're not going to dwell on that one. Here's where I want to park for just a minute, all right? This is a kind of a mock, very, very simple tax return for a married couple in Virginia over the age of 65. And I'm just going to walk step by step through this to help you see when you're making decisions where those decisions are going to fit into a Virginia tax return. Right at the beginning is the federal adjusted gross income of this taxpayer. They're taking that off their federal return and putting it on their Virginia return. Every time we make a decision to deconform or not to agree, this taxpayer is going to have to adjust to that. They're going to have to make a change to the amount they took off their federal return and added to their Virginia return. Those are those next two lines right there. You see those two lines? The additions are things that we've disagreed with, and they have to now increase that number by that amount. And the next one, the subtraction, is things that maybe we have allowed that the federal government has not allowed, and now they get to deduct some of those. But that's the changes that this taxpayer needed to make because we didn't agree with the federal definition in federal adjusted gross income. So they had to adjust that number a little bit. So obviously, just the more adjustments the taxpayer has to make, the more complicated their tax return gets. The next line is the deduction. This is the age deduction. They're over 65, so they get an age deduction in Virginia. And the last one is their itemized or their standard deduction. They took the standard deduction. I'm going to come back to those numbers, but those are numbers they're just allowed to reduce their federal adjusted gross income by. They have a couple of deductions. The federal government also allows certain deductions, but those don't come through to us. Those only the things that are, we call above the line, things that go into adjusted gross income come through to us, to Virginia, and the rest of the things on their federal return don't. So they have a different standard deduction amount on their federal return than they do on their state return. The next part there, if you see the 930, 930, 800, 800, those are the personal exemptions for Virginia. This married couple each got a personal exemption, and because they're over 65, they got an additional $800 personal exemption. That resulted in their taxable income. That came to the tax that they owe Virginia. And the last thing you see there is a credit. I just want to point out the difference here between those deductions up there and the credits up there. They operate very differently. Those deductions up there only reduce the amount that they have to pay tax on. So the value they get for a deduction is only generally 5.75, the tax rate of that deduction. So it looks like a big number. They got to reduce their taxes by $17,500. That looks like a really big number, but the actual amount they're getting in value of that's only 5.75% of that number. Well, if you look at the bottom here with that tax credit, that's a dollar for dollar reduction. So they get a 100% value off of the tax credit versus only a 5.75% on the deduction. I just wanted to point that out. You're going to have both deductions, subtractions, and credits that you're going to be voting on and looking at, and that's the big difference that you need to be aware of. All right.
If I can break in right at this moment because of the pressure of time,
yep.
This is a crucial slide, especially for public understanding, that you noticed you started with a $70,000 income, but then you break it down and break it down and break it down. So we're really not taxing the first $2,000 that somebody makes. So this also will be in all of the details that you've just gotten will be extremely important in the bills that will come before us. But now if I could ask you to the next 4 slides, more general but drawing your attention to this basic information will often come out in your fiscal impact statements. And I love the FIS statements from tax because they're my ongoing education and also the history. But if you could move to the next section, that would be needed for the time.
Right. This is just Virginia's current tax rate structure. As we pointed out, the first $3,000 and your income doesn't get taxed at all. And then after you hit $3,000, this is the rate at which your taxes are paid. Your personal exemptions, we've mentioned that the current amount is $930, and you see at the bottom there, that's that extra line where you got that $800 for age or blindness. And then this is the standard deduction. I just wanted to point out this slide is also going to be something you're going to have to deal with very shortly, that the current amount of Virginia standard deduction there is under the 2025-2026 number, is currently at $8,750 for singles and $17,500 for married couples. That goes back to $3,000 for singles and $6,000 for married couples if no updates are made. I just wanted to point that out. That's something you're probably going to have to take a look at. The last two slides are just kind of some number slides that you can take a look at that kind of give you an idea about how much of the money goes in each one of these pools. And the last one is how many returns. This is a return slide. I'll just point out that the married filing joint, that's per return. That's not per taxpayer. The per taxpayer amount is actually double that because there are two taxpayers in every married filing joint return. The married filing joint returns are actually represent the most taxpayers, almost 50-50 if you add them up. And I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Savage to give you a little more about sales tax.
And these last two charts are in the annual report of the tax department, another document that you should become familiar with.
You want to hear about sales taxes? Because that's what we're going to talk about.
We have a hard stop at shortly after 2 because of courts committee. So your judgment, Mr. Secretary.
We're good. I mean, if you there's a lot of sales tax. It's under number 2, source of revenues you heard, and there changes a lot as we go. There may be changes this year, but I just want you to remember that if you propose a tax credit, you're taking it from the children. Okay.
Well,
and with that, I'll
if you could bring up chart item 34, what I want to make sure the committee is aware of this history, where we started out with great conformity among the localities, and then do look at this history at fairly recently, how many different regional bodies, et cetera, other ways it was extended. So this is also an issue of tax policy that may come before us and has come before us, of whether this ought to be less and less of everybody does it exactly the same, or what are our special needs.
Thank you.
That
concludes our remarks.
I didn't realize. Well, I wanted to make sure that the committee, again, because we have so many new members, the criticality of the fiscal impact statements to this committee. Typically, we do not schedule a bill in subcommittee unless the fiscal impact statement is available. They are typically 3 or 4 pages. They have good information. And some people say, oh, Vivian, no, I learn every day, and part of it comes from these fiscal impact statements. Thank you to tax, and when DPB also joins in, we have a little bit of a problem in making sure that we have good input as far as our local governments and the effect on the great diversity of local geographic density and population, all of the various pressures that happen on our local government. Very often there's also not one size fits all. So again, I draw your attention to this, very critical. Thank you, tax, for all that you do to make sure that this instrument is available for us. And Mr. Secretary?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Could I ask Mr. Secretary
now, yes,
a question?
if there, we now have about 5 minutes, and then I need the rest. 5 minutes for general questions. Put them on. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary.
We could have done
May I
sales
ask
taxes.
questions, Madam Chair?
Yes.
The poor guy over here came up here to talk about
Delegate
sales
Sullivan.
taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, well, time is short. I was going to ask you to explain Section 58.1-3009 to us.
It's been nice. It's been nice here.
I know
being my
that your
first,
incredibly detailed explanation would take too much time, so I have just one question for us.
So I went to Clemson, you know.
Just one question. And it's the most important question of the day. You going to miss us?
Oh, my God, yes.
We will miss you. Good luck. Godspeed.
Thank you. And again, the yellow button down at the bottom of your screen is the request to speak. If you will hit that, I think I have a chart that will tell me that you've hit it. But
I stole it. I'm sure.
It doesn't. It's over here. Delegate Keys-Gamarra.
Yes, Madam Chair. I just wanted to, I couldn't hear what you said earlier. You mentioned an annual report. We should make sure we read.
There is an annual report by the tax department that, again, is an invaluable place to see those 2 charts, but there are 20 charts or more, breaking down various information you might like, as what I might find interesting. Again, I want to also draw the attention of the Auditor of Public Accounts annual, all of their laying out of the stream of revenues to localities.
I have one follow-up, if I may.
Yes, please.
I wanted to, with respect to the fiscal impact reports, I'm wondering, do you get input from the various agencies that may be impacted, and whether delegates can have an opportunity to understand what that input is, check it with other information we have received, or whether we basically can discuss the root of those particular decisions?
Yeah, Madam, we rely very much on the agencies feeding us information, and based on our knowledge of them and their finances, we also try to make sure there's a reasonableness factor of what we're hearing. And typically, that is when what you'll see in the fiscal impact statement. We will say, according to this agency, these are the implications that we think are going to happen. And we wouldn't put them in if we didn't think they had some validity. But I will say, sometimes we do need to call the office of the delegate or senator to make sure we understand what it is that's trying to be done, because often they may have one thought that it might be doing something, and as it turns out, it might help if they modified it to get to where they wanted to go. But just to warn you, we do a fiscal impact on the legislation that's in the system. So even if you are making a number of amendments to it or changing it, you're going to see against that piece of legislation that was given to us, because we can't react until we see what changes you've made. So at the end of the day, but in general, yes, we rely very heavily on the agencies.
Thank you. Delegate Cole.
Yeah, I mean, I had several frustrations with that over the years. So you got to keep trying a little bit to make sure they know what we're trying to do. I had a bill last year that I thought would save DMAS money. They thought it was going to cost them money. It was like totally different planets we were on. Yeah.
And then I guess while I'm using time, it certainly has been extremely important to me over the years to get that initial impact statement. Now I know the territory that I'm working in, and I expect to come back with another bill the next year, but I get a good grounding of something I might not have had a full understanding of. The next on my list, Delegate Cole.
Yes. Would you introduce who were the gentlemen or women who are going to present on the retail sales and use tax, so that we'll know who?
Come on down.
Thank you.
Yeah, come on down. You got plenty of time.
Sorry, James.
We could have done this a normal way.
Oh yeah, good afternoon, everyone. James Savage from the Virginia Department of Taxation.
Do you want to talk about it?
Oh, sure, I can talk about it. Yeah, definitely. So what did I want to say? And I'll go super quick, because that's what I've kind of... so I guess the first thing to mention sort of is what it is and sort of who pays it. Essentially, the retail sales and use tax applies to the sale and lease generally of tangible personal property, so generally with some limited exceptions, physical items. And I should say that's something that's kind of area of debate, is how much that should be sort of expanded potentially to apply to other things. Other states have looked at that. And then this chart, I think Chair Watts pointed out, essentially gives you an idea of sort of the history here, which I think is really interesting to see, sort of the rates increasing, some of the rate reductions, particularly on local, what do I want to say, I'm blanking here, the personal hygiene and the food consumption, and then you also have sort of the regional and local rates as well. And I find this chart really, really helpful because it gives you kind of an overview, sort of the landscape, like where we're at as of today. And you can see going all the way from sort of like 7% in the historic triangle to 5.3. And I should mention, unlike the individual income tax, what do I want to say? This tax, it's very much distributed to different funds. So some of it goes to education, some of it goes to transportation, some goes to the general fund, some of it goes to 1% to locals as well. And then very quickly, I don't know if the committee would like to hear about fiscal impact statements, or I can skip that because I know we're low on time.
Sorry, but I don't have time on this particular
thank
day.
You. So what's your name again?
Oh, sure, James Savage.
Delegate Ware.
James Savage, you know. So that was a little more simple than I even know, because the 5.3% sales tax that's everywhere outside of the transportation special taxes is really, the state portion of that's 4.3%. There has been a local option, 1 cent for time immemorial, way before.
Since almost the beginning.
Almost the beginning. So of the 5.3%, 1 cent of that goes back to the local government. 1 cent goes to the school divisions based on
1 cent plus.
Yeah, 1 cent plus a little bit. Yeah, goes to school divisions based on average daily membership.
No, school age population. And the reason why that's important, it came in right after massive resistance. We had to rebuild our schools, and no matter where the children, the decision was that they might still go to these academies. The public money was going to the public funding of K through of children who were school age, and that has remained.
Yeah, don't call it average daily membership.
There's more history that I won't go into.
Yeah, so those are two of the big things that's part of the 4.3%, but there's other waterfall effects of where that sales tax is dedicated to.
Mm-hmm. And again, I do have a chart, and I'll provide you all with it. I'm going to turn now to Delegate Ware.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to underscore that the latest example of the wit and wisdom of Secretary Sickles, his statement that if you pass a tax credit, you take it from the children. I can assure you that, having sat in the chair that Chair Watts now sits, there were always interesting conversations with whoever was sitting in the chair that Luke Terrian now resides in. When we get to the questions of new tax credits or deductions, it has an effect.
Absolutely. That's terrific, yeah.
And again, I thank you very much, Mr. Secretary, and all of the key roles that the Secretariat plays. This has been very informative, as I say. I learn every day. Now, please, I need another 5 minutes to announce the subcommittee assignments. Shh. The subcommittee assignments will be published, but for Subcommittee 1, which this year is state taxes, meets Monday mornings at 7 a.m., will be chaired by Delegate Hernandez, and on that committee will be Delegates Gardner, Coulson, Maldonado, Pope Adams, Anthony, Bulova, Fowler, McNamara, Davis. Sub 2, which this year will be local taxation and will meet on Tuesdays at 4 in the afternoon. It'll be chaired by Delegate Anthony, and on the committee will be Delegates Keys Gamara. I'm sorry, is it Doherty? Doherty? Carroll, Cole, Franklin, Bennett Parker, Ware, Walker, Garrett. And Subcommittee 3, which meets on Friday mornings periodically. It is not every Friday morning. It will be chaired by Sullivan. On the committee will be Delegates Watts, Hernandez, Anthony, Carroll, Pope Adams, Ware, and Runyon. I believe I just did that wrong. Excuse me. It will be, rather than Ware, my apologies, it'll be Delegate McNamara and Runyon. I believe that concludes the business of the committee. Again, for those who might have been following, 2 bills that I mentioned will be taken up by full committee on Wednesday. The Tuesday meeting of Subcommittee 2 will take place. I have forgotten which committee room it is. I think it's down on the other side of the elevator bank. If there are no further questions, comments, if I can hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned.